Is there a potential upside to TPG's acquisition of PTC, Kepware, and ThingWorks? Take 0. All right, so obviously it's been a week or so since we did the live stream after TPG announced their acquisition of Kepware and ThingWorks. Obviously, this is a massive announcement. You know, just to quickly summarize, TPG acquired Prophecy from GE or GE Vernova. They acquired Prophecy, and then they, right on the heels of that, they announced the acquisition of Kepware and the acquisition of ThingWorks. If you want to see what my initial reactions are, you can watch the live stream on our YouTube channel. Just click on live and go watch that one, TPG, Kepware, and ThingWorks acquisition. I've had hundreds of conversations in the last week on this acquisition. In fact, on the heels of that live stream, I went to Houston for Siemens Developer Days. So for ThingWorks, or for WinCCOA, and I gave the keynote address at those Developer Days. And a lot of what we talked about there was TPG's acquisition, not during my address, but just that's what everyone was talking about. Okay. And then a bunch of people sent me a link to this LinkedIn post by Vishak K from the QKS group. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read what he posted, which is kind of like, hey, an upside. We'll go through the whole thing, and then I'm going to react to it. All right, so this is, you guys should follow him on LinkedIn if you're interested. His name is Vishak K. He's a principal analyst, IoT and edge computing at the QKS group. I just want to point something out here. When it comes to analysts, you know, why am I so hard on analyst companies like, you know, LRS Analytics and Forrester and Gartner and all these? Okay, this is the typical background. I don't want to shit on this guy. I don't know him, and it was very well written, so I don't want to take any of this as like I'm shitting on this guy, because I'm definitely not. Okay, his background is his background, but I do want to point out, okay, that he's an analyst for a company that does market analytics in IoT and Industry 4. He posts publicly his thoughts on the acquisition of TPG with Kepware and ThingWorks. Okay. He has an MBA. It looks like he has a Bachelor of Technology in Mechanical Engineering, and then he has an MBA, and it looks like he got them back to back. He was a quality engineer for 7 months. Then he was in business development for 7 months. Then he was a consultant for a SaaS company for 2 months. Then he became an analyst for QKS Group, and now he's a principal analyst. Okay, so for 2 years he was an analyst. The bulk of his career has been as an analyst. All right? Okay, from what paradigm is he doing the analysis? Like, from what insight into the market is he doing his analysis? Right? If anybody asks what, you know, I'm analyzing the market from the perspective of 12 years working in manufacturing on the plant floor, using all these tools and strategies and architectures and stuff in mining, and then printing, and then steel, and then tier 1 automotive. Then from 4 years working for two of the most well-known systems integrators in the world. The first one was 2013 Systems Integrator of the Year, where I worked for Starbucks and Frito-Lay and Pioneer Natural Resources. And then the second integrator I worked for, they did the controls on the Mars rover. Okay. And that was the project where I was the lead engineer on the largest standalone SCADA system in the world. Then I built the entire business for that integrator in Texas, hired the engineers, opened the office, did the branding, built all the customers, built the strategies. Then I started a system integrator, and I built the system integrator from this of all the things that I had learned over the course of my career. And then I turned Intellic Integration into one of the most well-known systems integrators in the world, doing the revenue of an integrator of 100 employees with 23 or 24 team members. Okay. And then I started educating in 2018, 18 years after I joined the industry. And I started doing analysis on Rockwell Automation and Siemens and inductive automation and talking about the strategies that have been successful for me. And then in 2020, we started the Discord server, which is 8,000 people to this day, IIoT.university, which has 14,000 students at it. Okay. That is I'm coming from the perspective of all that experience. And one of the things that I really struggle with, and again, Vishak, no fault to him whatsoever. This is very well written and everything. But when I read his analysis, I'm like, and that's not just me, when anyone does, when they read his analysis of the market, it is, the question you ask is, well, why should I listen to his analysis? The 4 things everyone should ask is, why should anyone listen to me? What am I going to say? What are they going to hear? What are they going to say is most valuable? Okay, I want to point something out here. Multiple people sent me this analysis, and I think the reason they did it was because executives at Kepware commented on it and thanked him for his analysis. Okay, I just want to point out just how dire the situation is that if the people at the highest levels at Kepware are having to prop up the analysis of somebody, if I'm being honest, isn't in a position to make an analysis on the market here. Okay? It really, he has the role, but his lack of experience in the market is demonstrated in his analysis here, his basic analysis. Again, Vishak, if and because I'm calling him out publicly, if he wants to come on a podcast and defend what he said, like, hey, this is my analysis, here's why I think there's reason for optimism. It's not, I don't disagree. I think there's reason for optimism, by the way. But I am going to go through this whole thing. I want you, the audience, to understand the paradigm through which, the perspective through which I read things like this. Okay. It's, again, the goal is not to shit on the guy. All right. I don't want to shit on him. All right. So he said, there's been a lot of discussion recently about TPG's acquisition of Kepware, a PTC technology, and ThingWorks, a PTC technology. And I've been following the reactions closely. I had an analyst briefing session with the Kepware team, Shelby Heggie, Abby Eon, Emily Griffin, Raymond Lab, and Thomas Gaudette, just last month, where we went deep into Kepware's product capabilities, customer success stories, architectural roadmap, and strategic direction. Okay. Tom Gaudette is the guy who's owned the product, Kepware product, for like a decade now. He's been the principal product owner. Abby came over from PTC, and she runs Kepware. She took Tony Payne's spot. My understanding is that Emily Griffin is now the new product owner at Kepware. Don't quote me there, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. And Tom is no longer in charge of the product. Okay. Don't know Raymond and Shelby. Maybe I do. I'm not recalling them. Okay. One of the key themes we discussed was how the industry is shifting from pure connectivity towards data intelligence and lightweight container native edge deployments. Okay. No, it is not shifting from pure connectivity. Okay. So the market was never focused on just pure connectivity to begin with. That's why it's not shifting from pure connectivity. Connectivity was always just one step in a much larger whole. It was never the primary step, ever, at any point. Okay? You were always connecting to your devices, which were almost certainly using proprietary protocols. Everybody wonders, why is it we have so many drivers? Like, why is it there are so many drivers? Like, why do you have to have 300 drivers? Why is it a PLC just doesn't support a standard protocol and that's how you communicate to it? Okay? Well, the answer is that in order for PLCs to run as fast as they possibly can, they have many functions. PLCs need to have 9 nines of reliability. That is, once they start running, they never error out. They just fucking run. Okay, number one. Number two, they need to talk to other PLCs at the speed of light, and that happens over field bus. Okay, you can't use slow communications protocols in order to pass information, data and information between PLCs. Okay, that's number two. They're their primary function. Automation is the primary function of an edge device. Okay, connectivity is a secondary function. All right. So oftentimes how you are pulling the data out of that PLC to some third party is a secondary thought. It's a secondary thought. So by the time you get there and you go, okay, well, how are we going to do this? Yeah, we're going to put an Ethernet adapter on here. Okay, so you're going to be able to talk to it over Ethernet IP. But what is the payload going to look like? Well, the payload going over the wire is a function of how they organize and structure the data inside the PLC. And so the driver itself has to be able to decipher, reverse engineer the payload. It has to be able to parse the payload. And that's where the driver comes from. Okay, all the rules about connecting to it is in that driver. That's why we have like 300 drivers. Kepware is really, really good at writing those drivers. They write the best ones, the ones that fail the least, have the highest throughput, and are the most reliable. Okay, just set it and forget it. It's never the driver. Okay. However, it's never been pure connectivity. You were always connecting for a reason, and you were always connecting for data intelligence. Whether you were doing process control, supervised control and data acquisition, supervisory control is data intelligence. Okay, the things we were putting on the screen were informing the operator. Okay? It just so happens that the function of the operator was to control the process. Now what we're doing is we're taking that same data and we're using it to automate business decisions, things like reordering the schedule or picking from a lot of materials to yield the highest likely positive quality outcomes. Okay? So we're not shifting from pure connectivity towards data intelligence. We've always been focused there. Always. We've always been focused on connectivity and data intelligence. The difference is that we're moving towards intelligence platforms for business decisions, not just controlling processes, right? And then this is the big one, lightweight container native edge deployments. All right, I just want to point something out here. All right, so the Kepware team spoke extensively about the upcoming Kepware Edge offering, and based on what I've seen, it looks like a strong and much-needed evolution of their platform. Okay, great. I hope you're right, but why should I listen to you? Because you have no experience in this field. Like, what is it about what you saw that makes you feel like this is a strong and much-needed evolution of the platform? What is it that you saw that makes you think that? Because I beta tested, me personally, the original Kepware Edge 6 years ago. And it was clunky and it was clearly Kepware struggled to build Linux-based drivers. They struggled, okay? Now I don't know if that's the function, I don't know if that was, they didn't have the technical resources that knew how to write drivers for Linux. Like, were they just Windows, were all their developers Windows-based developers and they didn't have the resources to write those drivers? Or did they hire the resources to write those drivers and they weren't the right resources? I mean, the challenge is they're based in Portland, Maine. So it's not like, if we look at the trends, all the brain drain isn't from south to north, it's from north to south. And if you look at the brain drain, the people who move away are the people you would likely need to hire to develop drivers like that. And I don't know how much of their team was remote. I should know that, but I don't know that. All right. So based on what experience are you saying that looks like strong and much needed evolution of their platform? And what I'd like to know is, what is it about the old platform that you didn't like that they are going to cover, that they're going to fix with Kepware Edge? And what problems were the customers having with the way they were originally going to market technically? I'd love to see that answer. He goes, so I'm seeing mixed opinions about the acquisition news, but after stepping back and reflecting on it, I believe this is a positive overall for the Kepware organization. Under PTC, Kepware and ThingWorx were part of a much broader industrial digital thread strategy. No, they weren't. The original idea, it was very clear that PTC was going to the edge when they acquired Kepware. Originally, it was very clear that PTC was going to take ThingWorx and have it be an IoT platform layer on top. Kepware was going to be on the edge, and they were going to work seamlessly together. Okay? You want to know what ended up happening? PTC had no idea what they were doing. They had no idea what they were doing, and they didn't understand, okay, well, how do I get the data that's being acquired from Kepware through these drivers, and how do I get that seamlessly into the ThingWorx platform? And here's something they ran into. Oh, wait a minute. I can do some OPC UA modeling in Kepware in the tag structure inside of Kep Server EX, but ThingWorx uses things, the thing objects classes, for how they move objects through the platform. And that is more easily doable through an OSI Pi asset frame. It is much easier to bolt an OSI Pi asset frame or event frame onto a ThingWorx thing. And you want to know what ended up happening? PTC went all in on the ThingWorx OSI Pi relationship, and they didn't even own OSI Pi. They owned Kepware, but they didn't invest in Kepware to make it so that integration was seamless. At no point was there ever a mechanism to either model in Kepware or ThingWorx and have them be bidirectional. So, I mean, what are you talking about that they were part of a broader industrial digital threads strategy? You couldn't thread data from Kepware into ThingWorx. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. In contrast, TPG generally scales acquired assets through product modernization, portfolio simplification, focused investments, and aggressive go-to-market expansion. This gives Kepware the opportunity to operate as a more focused, faster-moving, pure-play industrial connectivity and edge platform provider. You forgot that there's two things here you forgot. I don't want to shit on this guy again. Yes, do they modernize products? It's debatable. It's certainly part of their strategy, okay? There is some modernization, but I wouldn't put that. I don't know. I have done a lot of research on TPG's work. I have looked at all their exits. There's no win in Industry 4. There is not a single exit that TPG has done in Industry 4 that I think the market would have a consensus has been a win. Okay? In fact, I have reached out to a lot of customers of their two primary exits in Industry 4, and the complaints have been overwhelming on TPG's leadership. Okay? And if you want to know which ones I'm talking about, you can watch the podcast. Okay? I didn't mention that I reached out to the customers because that's happened after the podcast. All right. From our recent research on industrial edge connectivity platforms, Kepware continues to stand out for several reasons. One of the broadest global customer footprints in industrial connectivity. Check. Absolutely. By the way, that's what this acquisition is all about right there. That customer footprint. Number two, the largest library of industrial drivers and protocol support, still ahead of most vendors in the market. It is not the largest library. It is one of the largest libraries. Yes. Number three, strong OPC UA interoperability and reliability built over decades. That isn't entirely true. Are they the best OPC UA server? Absolutely. But even Kepware, if you look at the OPC UA standard and then you look at Kep Server supports less than 9% of all the elements in the entire OPC UA spec. Okay. Now, to their credit, based on our research, just slightly over 10% of the entire spec has ever been implemented ever in any product. And Kepware covers nearly all of it. Not all of it, nearly all of it. All the stuff that's been implemented. Proven scalability in multi-site industrial environments, absolutely no doubt about that. Robust plugin ecosystem, advanced tags, data logger, alarms and events. Okay. Advanced tags are very powerful. The data logger there's absolutely no reason to use Kepware's data logger. Okay? And I do agree with you on alarms and events, especially on the edge and the A&E engine over OPC UA. All right. Evolving strategy for Linux container-based deployments through Kepware Edge. I would say this. I hope this is true. What I would want to know is this. What has changed at Kepware to make this second go-around on the Linux-based drivers a success? What has changed? If Kepware wasn't able to do it 5 years ago, and they abandoned it, it wasn't that great. It was a good start, but it wasn't that great, okay? I mean, the Rockwell driver wasn't really, it was the Rockwell and Siemens driver. Neither of them were great drivers, okay? But I think the vast majority of us who were testing the drivers were giving them the benefit of the doubt because it was a new approach, right? We were trying to put it in the context of, hey, let's imagine they're writing a driver for the first time in 2000, But there is no evidence whatsoever for you to say that Kepware stands out because of their evolving strategy for Linux and container-based deployments through Kepware Edge. That's you trying to be optimistic on their behalf. Okay, if you take the fact that they have hemorrhaged talent, that they have not developed the platform. I did a video at LiveWorks with Tom Godot. I did a video at LiveWorks. I think it was 4 years ago now, maybe 3 years ago, on Kepware Plus. Okay, now Kepware Plus is supposed to be their enterprise management utility for KepServer EX. Okay, nothing happened with that. Go ask anybody who's been working with Kepware Plus, and they'll all tell you the same thing. Like this, but it's disappointing. There is absolutely no evidence that this evolving strategy for Linux container-based deployments through Kepware Edge is a reason to say that Kepware stands out. Kepware stands out because of their install base, and they stand out because they make the best drivers in the world. That is still that is an objective measurement. We can just measure how good the drivers are. Okay? He goes, I think the acquisition may not be a shift away from Kepware's strengths. It can be an opportunity to double down on them. From what I can make out from our recent discussion, the core products remain stable, the roadmaps remain intact, and the future direction aligns with where the industrial edge ecosystem is headed. Also, you want to know another element of TPG's strategy? Do nothing for 8 to 12 months. So the deal's going to close in the first half of next year, and then do nothing. Calm everybody's nerves. That is literally part one of their strategy. Okay, so arguing that their roadmaps are going to remain intact, the core products are going to remain stable, and the future direction aligns with where the industrial edge ecosystem is headed is something that's you can only reliably believe that for 6 months. And by the way, if people have to make investments in changing their edge connectivity, they have to start making plans for that now. Because the capital request process for end users, for manufacturers, is a 12 to 18 month process. And by the way, connectivity is sticky. The real reality here is that there is a massive amount of risk for people who are currently using Kepware. There is way more reason to be skeptical than there is to be optimistic. Not that there aren't reasons to be optimistic, which I'll lay out here in a second. Okay? He says it's still early to judge long-term impact, but the direction suggests Kepware will be better aligned with the industry shift towards unified edge connectivity and data orchestration. Okay? Well, first off, where is data orchestration going to take place? I mean, I don't know if he knows what data orchestration is, but data orchestration is the analyze component that's data ops. Okay, Kepware would have been much better positioned if they merged with Highbyte. Okay, you could have literally, it was a match made in heaven. You literally had the people who built Kepware. Everyone who runs HiByte, they know Kepware intimately. Okay, now unless TPG is going to go and acquire HiByte, okay, and then take the HiByte team and take all that they've learned over the last 3 or 4 years and tell them to modernize Kepware. You take the reins and you modernize Kepware. TPG doesn't have anyone in their organization who is equipped to modernize Kepware. Where is this going to come from? What people are going to do this? What people are going to do this? Like literally, who's going to do it? Give me the name of the person. Give me the name of the person. You called out some people here. Okay, none of the people here, by the way, I think the Emily Griffin move is the right move to put Emily, who I'm pretty sure is in charge of product. Oh, let's take a look here. Senior Director, Kepware Product. Yes. So putting Emily in charge is the right move. Okay. Why? Her hubris. She has a lot less hubris than the people who have been in charge of product. Okay. And hubris is, your confidence and arrogance keeps you blind to your blind spots, right? The way you overcome hubris is to put devil's advocates in the room. Somebody who's going to constantly challenge you. That's the way you overcome hubris. You literally, the way I do it so that I avoid starting to believe that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, is I tell my team, it is your job to tell me I'm wrong. It is your job to challenge me. I'm literally paying you to challenge me. Your job, I never come on one of these videos and have someone say a counterpoint to me that I have not already heard internally from my own team and that I have not already defended. Okay? I believe Emily's the right move because I don't know if she's going to be blinded. I don't know if her blind spots are as big as the previous product owner. Okay? And not being having fewer blind spots is what you must have right now in order to affect change. Okay? But Vishal, I just want to point something out here. All right. I want you to look at this. There's 110 interactions. Okay. 3 comments, 6 reposts. So we do digital media. I can tell you what this means. Okay. When you have 3 comments, you have less than 3% comment rate to your interaction rate. This is an artificially inflated interaction. And the 3 comments are all people from Kepware. And it's all people from Kepware thanking him for the analysis. An analysis that, again, I don't want to shit on the guy, but how is this valuable? So many people sent me this and said, Walker, do you want to comment on this? I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you listening to this to begin with? Seriously. Why are you listening to this to begin with? What are the reasons to be optimistic? Okay? And let me say this. I love Kepware. Like, this fucking pains me. It absolutely pains me. I'm so unbelievably disappointed. So unbelievably disappointed in PTC. I'm so unbelievably disappointed. Why anyone works with PTC at all is beyond me. I do not understand it. I'm telling you, I do not understand it. I do not understand it. I just don't get it. I don't. PTC wasn't the least bit interested in learning what they were doing wrong. And not just from, hell, they basically ignored Rick Bellata when Rick, who developed ThingWorks, was literally, he had a direct pipeline to the CEO. They just fucking ignored him. He was like, listen, you're driving off a cliff here. And they just ignored him. They ignored their customers when they were complaining about pricing, when they were complaining about how it's too difficult to work with the software development kit with ThingWorks, when they were complaining about how aggressive their salespeople were, when they were complaining about the fact that they would go to conferences, find other people who are using ThingWorks and find out this, I'm paying X per user for ThingWorks, and this guy's paying 1/5 X. Why? I'm so unbelievably disappointed in PTC. And here's why I am optimistic. Okay, here are the reasons to be optimistic about TPG's acquisition. Okay, now I'm not saying I'm optimistic. I am hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. What is the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario is TPG takes a stab at modernizing the tech in Prophecy, ThingWorx, and Kepware, and tries to create an open, unified platform, okay? And then they realize that the technical debt in Prophecy and the fact that Kepware basically has to be built from scratch in order to modernize it, the capital that needs to go into that does not allow them to get sufficient return in their 4 to 6 year window, which is what they look for. They look to hold for 4 to 6 years and exit. Okay, and they are expecting a much higher return than 3x 4 to 6 years from now. Okay, they overpaid for ThingWorx and Kepware. ThingWorx and Kepware should have been worth in the billions, okay, by now. That's how poorly PTC did with it. And it wasn't worth the $600 million TPG's paid. It isn't. What they bought here, Prophecy, Kepware, ThingWorx for 1.2 total, it isn't worth that. I mean, think about where they have to go. Think about where TPG's got to go, okay? You have to go to, if we're in the fifth industrial revolution right now, so that is the convergence of human and artificial intelligence. And if we know that the promise of AI is making people superhuman, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It isn't so much autonomous agents, okay? Stop getting distracted by that. I think that's the value proposition that's being sold, the ROI that's being sold. But the reality is, all you have to do is work in the AI world, and you recognize that humans and AI are going to work very symbiotically with one another, okay? And that the promise of AI is unlocking the potential in people. That's really what it is, okay? That is the fifth industrial revolution, the convergence of human and artificial intelligence. And there's a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is large language models are not trained on the innovative thoughts in the world, okay? They are trained on the mean, okay? It is human beings that will drive innovation through AI, okay? And all the promises of artificial intelligence, they ultimately land with AI making humans better. Okay? If you're going to do that, if you're going to unlock the potential of humanity through artificial intelligence, okay, then if you're an IIoT platform, there is a new layer that has to be built. And that new layer is the shim between software, data structures, and events and artificial intelligence. Okay? So whether you're talking about Tune, which I don't believe Tune is going to be the protocol everyone's using. If you look at model context protocol, if you look at agent to agent, you look at the REST, and you look at unified namespace, the relationship of all those things in the fifth industrial revolution, there is a layer that all IoT platforms have to build, okay? And it is the shim between software, data, and event structures and AI, human decision-making and outcomes. Okay, there's a shim there, right? If you look at HiveMQ's strategic focus is to that shim. If you look at inductive automation, they're adding their MCP module in January. The focus is moving to that shim. If you look at the 8.3 release, it is all about creating the foundational technological infrastructure to enable that. Okay? If you take Prophecy, Kepware, and ThingWorx, and you go, how do we go from where they are right now to where HiveMQ and inductive automation are right now? That is hundreds of millions of dollars of development. Hundreds of millions. I mean, you're going to get into that process and you're going to go, wait a minute, we're better off throwing most of this away. I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. With Prophecy, they bought a fucking name. They spent $600 million on a name. Okay? With Kepware, they bought an install base and the best drivers in the world. So they have a baseline. They got that lab, they got the install base, and they got the best drivers in the world. And with ThingWorks, they bought a platform that's been neglected since 2018. Now, the irony, and I said it, is that if you were going to develop something, the thing that you could develop, that the product that has the least amount of technical debt, where you could just expand it and modernize it, is ThingWorks. It's not Prophecy, and it isn't Kepware. Kepware is going to require a wholesale refactoring. When he talks about the Linux drivers here, they're building that from scratch. From the beginning, they're taking what they've learned about building drivers that are Windows-based, and they're building it from scratch. Why? Because the technology is completely different. This guy obviously doesn't understand the difference between writing a driver that's going to run in a Linux container and a driver that runs on Windows. I'll bet you he cannot tell you. If you ask him, what's the difference between COM and DCOM, I'll bet you he can't tell you. He can look it up. So, what is the scenario for optimism? Okay. The likely scenario is TPG starts spending some money to modernize, realizes, wow, this is going to require a much bigger investment than we thought, and they pivot to a squeeze. What we're going to do is we're going to cut costs. We're going to increase prices. We're going to aggressively go to market and sell hard. And we're going to cut costs to make these companies look more valuable on paper and then exit. And let the innovation in the future be someone else's problem. That is the most likely outcome. Okay, that's the most. I hope that's not the outcome. But it is the most likely outcome. Okay? Because I assure you, no one at TPG who signed off on this deal knew where Prophecy really played. They looked at a balance sheet. They looked at a P&L. They looked at some reference architectures. They looked at what Prophecy sold them. Okay? I'm sure they probably saw some slides that said OPC UA is much more prevalent in the market than it actually is. I'll bet you TPG doesn't know that 88% of the entire spec has never been implemented. Ever. In any scenario. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. 88% of the shit in the specification. I'll bet you TPG doesn't know that. Okay, the reality is that the likely outcome is not one that we're going to like. What is the cause for optimism? And it really comes in two places. Okay, the fact of the matter is that Kepware still makes the best drivers in the world. They do. And the fact that they have the market share they do still to this day is a testament to how valuable those drivers are, in the fact that we all have to do so much integration work between that connect layer, and data ops. It's not seamless. Okay? The fact that we can't orchestrate deployment of our drivers across our businesses, and we put up with that. We still use Kepware. By orchestration, I mean using a text file to deploy infrastructure. Deploy a driver agent here and a driver agent there and a driver agent there that connects to the PLC, extracts the data, funnels it into a common Kep server EX node, a service that we then connect our clients to. We orchestrate that through text files. Okay? That's not possible right now. It can be done. You still got to do the install process, and then you could use the API to kind of recreate that. But you can't orchestrate, okay? And it requires a wholesale rebuild to do that. You can do that in Litmus right now. You can do it in Litmus right now. So they're going to weigh, okay, do we spend all that money trying to catch them? But the cause for optimism is they still make the best drivers in the world. Here's something else they have going for them. Their network of OEM partners is second to none. So the OEM partners, the people who white label Kepware, but also the people who resell Kepware and do the value-added reselling, Zach's term, they're second to none. That network, so not only do they have the biggest install base, but they've also got that network of OEM providers. The question is, does TPG know what they're doing? And just like Vishek is not the person who should be doing the analysis in this acquisition. He never asked himself the question, why should anyone listen to me? The answer was, because I work for an analyst firm. Well, there are people who work for analyst firms who shouldn't be commenting on things, okay? Just like that, TPG never asked themselves, why are we the ones who should acquire these 3 products to modernize them and to serve customers? I'm still in wait and see mode. I don't think anyone should do anything, but I think you should keep your eyeballs down the road. You know, we're gonna know more in 6 to 8 months, but right now you must be taking an inventory of your connectivity layer. If you're using Kepware, you must be taking an inventory. If you're using ThingWorx, I'd be pivoting to a different platform. I don't even know anyone who's really using Prophecy, so it's irrelevant. Okay, they bought a name, right? Not that no one's using Prophecy. Okay, you need to be taking a wholesale inventory of your Kepware infrastructure. Okay, number one, you need to have that in a reference architecture, and you need to be taking an inventory of the impact if you just unplug that, what would happen. Okay, then you need to be developing a strategy that you would fall back on in the event you have to pivot. You need to be doing that now. Okay. And then what you do is you hope you don't have to pivot. Okay? Because at the end of the day, whether or not TPG drives Kepware, ThingWorx, and Prophecy off a cliff, or whether they drive it into the future, is going to be a function of the fluency of the market and what the market is driving them to do and is holding them accountable to. If they can squeeze you for every dollar, if they can say things to you that are not true that you will believe because you don't know what you don't know, or they can make promises they can't deliver on because you don't know what you don't know, okay? Organizations do that. It is incumbent upon you as the end user, as the manufacturer, to work on your digital fluency, have a plan, okay, and drive vendors in the right direction. I love Kepware. I love the people at Kepware. This is not fun for me. Okay? But the difference between me and other people in this industry is I trust that transparency, authenticity, expertise, humility, and servant leadership are going to get me to where I need to be in service of getting our market to where it needs to be. Okay? I'm working on a 3-part series on unified namespace. I'll actually be shooting the first video today, all in the context of the Prove It conference. And I'll be showing the virtual factories that we have for Prove It this year. And one of the things that I've been working on in the slide is how does messaging how does innovation turn into a coined term, and then that coined term get hijacked by bandwagon followers, and they try to turn that term, like unified namespace, into meaning something it is not. Okay, how does that happen? And the winners and the losers are a function of which person you follow, which definition you follow when innovation happens. Okay, that's the first video that I'll be shooting. All right, with that, like, subscribe, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.